Hey, it's #1 best-selling author and motivational speaker, Erik Qualman. Most of you know me as Equalman. Welcome to today's 7 Super Tips with Mark Zuckerberg. On 7 Super Tips, we're trying to unlock and unleash your inner superpower by curating and compiling 7 tips from the world's best performers, CEOs, athletes, and beyond. Today we're with Facebook's founder and CEO, Mark Zuckerberg. One of the things I love about Mark, among many, is that he learned early on. Remember, he started Facebook when he was 19 years old. One thing that he learned early on in the process is that it wasn't about adding stuff, it was about taking away. So without further ado, here's Mark Zuckerberg's 7 Super Tips.
First of all, focus on it, right? I mean, I think you basically get what you spend your time doing, right? I mean, I want the company to build 3 products this year. I mean, we're going to work on a few others because people are interested in them, but those are the 3 things that I'm spending my product time on, right? You get what you put into it. If you spend a third of your time trying to make the people around you better through getting better people, mentoring, getting them to be better, getting the best people in your organization into more impactful roles, then I think over time that just accrues and you get a better organization.
You know, I always think that you should start with the problem that you're trying to solve in the world and not start with deciding that you want to build a company, right? I mean, the best companies that get built are things that are trying to drive some kind of social change, even if it's just local in one place, more than starting out because you want to make a bunch of money or have a lot of people working for you or build some company in some way. So, I always think that this is kind of a perverse thing about Silicon Valley in a way, which is that people decide often that they want to start a company before they even decide what they want to do. And that just feels really backwards to me. And, for anyone who's had the experience of actually building a company, you know that you go through some really hard things along the way. And I think part of what gets you through that is believing in what you're doing and knowing that what you're doing is really delivering a lot of value for people. And that's, I think, how the best companies end up getting made.
Do you like managing people?
If you work with people that you like, then it's wonderful, right? Because one definition that I have for a good team is a group of people that makes better decisions as a whole than would individually make as a sum of the parts. And I think most smart people like learning, right? And I mean, that's one of the thrills of starting a company, right? Is the learning curve can be so steep. And if you can set up a team dynamic where you're constantly learning from the people around you, then I mean, what's better, right? It's these are the people I wake up every morning and I want to go learn from and work from.
Is that one of your heuristics for hiring people too, to hire people that you learn from?
Yeah, and when building a team, you want to think about the dynamics so that way you can maintain this property that the team makes better decisions as a group than any individual would.
Today, I want to talk about purpose. But I'm not here to give you the standard commencement about finding your purpose. We're millennials. We try to do that instinctively. Instead, I'm here to tell you that finding your purpose isn't enough. The challenge for our generation is to create a world where everyone has a sense of purpose. One of my favorite stories is when JFK went to go visit the NASA Space Center and he saw a janitor holding a broom and he asked him what he was doing, and the janitor replied, "Mr. President, I'm helping put a man on the moon." Purpose is that feeling that you are a part of something bigger than yourself, that you are needed, and that you have something better ahead to work for. Purpose is what creates true happiness. And you are graduating at a time when this is especially important. When our parents graduated, that sense of purpose reliably came from your job, your church, your community. But today, technology and automation are eliminating many jobs. Membership in a lot of communities has been declining, and a lot of people are feeling disconnected and depressed and are trying to fill a void in their lives. As I've traveled around, I've sat with children in juvenile detention and opioid addicts who've told me that maybe their lives would have turned out differently if they just had something to do, an after-school program or somewhere to go. I've met factory workers who know their old jobs aren't coming back and are just trying to find their path ahead. For our society to keep moving forward, we have a generational challenge to not only create new jobs, but create a renewed sense of purpose. I remember that night I launched Facebook from that little dorm in Kirkland House. I went to Noakes with my friend KX, and I remember telling him clearly that I was excited to help connect the Harvard community, but one day someone would connect the whole world. The thing is, it never even occurred to me that that someone might be us. We were just college kids. We didn't know anything about that. There were all these great big technology companies with all these resources, and I just assumed one of them would do it. But this idea was so clear to us that all people want to connect. So we just kept working on it, day after day after day. And I know that a lot of you are going to have your own stories just like this. A change in the world that seems so clear that you are sure someone else is going to do it. But they're not. You will. But it's not enough to have that purpose yourself. You also have to create a sense of purpose for others. And I found that out the hard way. You see, my hope was never to build a company. I wanted to have an impact. And as all these people started joining us, I just assumed that that's what they wanted to do too. So I never took the time to explain what it was that I hoped we'd build. A couple years in, some big companies wanted to buy us. I didn't want to sell. I wanted to see if we could connect more people. And we were building the first version of NewsFeed at the time, and I thought, if we could just launch this, it could change how we all learn about the world. Nearly everyone else wanted to sell. Without a sense of higher purpose, this was their startup dream come true, and it tore our company apart. After one particularly tense argument, one of my close advisors told me if I didn't agree to sell the company right now, I would regret that decision for the rest of my life. Relationships were so frayed that within a year or so, every single person on our management team was gone. That was my hardest time leading Facebook. I believed in what we were doing, but I felt alone. And worse, it was my fault. I wondered if I was just wrong, an imposter, a 22-year-old kid who had no idea how things actually worked. Now, years later, I understand that is how things work when there's no sense of higher purpose. So it's up to all of us to create it so we can all keep moving forward together.
Do you think there's anything about you, like a personal quality of yours besides sort of basic smartness and determination that made you well suited to work on this project? I realize this requires some introspection.
Yeah, I actually think determination is probably the biggest piece. You know, it's so many things go wrong when you're starting a company, and often I think people ask, you know, what mistakes should you avoid making? And you know, my answer to that question is don't even bother trying to avoid mistakes because you're going to make tons of mistakes, right? And the important thing is actually learning quickly from whatever mistakes you make and not giving up, right? And I mean, there are things every single year of Facebook's existence that could have killed us or made it so that it just seemed like moving forward and making a lot of progress just seemed intractable, but you just kind of bounce back and you learn, and nothing is impossible. You just have to kind of keep running through the walls.
Looking back, if you could tell that 19-year-old kid something, what would you tell him?
I think that the things that you learn along the way are part of what makes you who you are.
Anything you would have done differently?
I mean, I would have done a lot of things differently. I hope that instead of making the mistakes that I made, I would have made different mistakes. But, you know, I mean, I think that this has been an extremely educational experience.
Some of it bruising for you inside?
But I think all mistakes are, right? I mean, when you break up with a girlfriend or have a failed relationship, right? I mean, those things are bruising, but you learn from that, and that's part of what makes you who you are.
And from a student's perspective, you know, I hear you work hard a lot. Everyone that I talk to, every thread I read, you're the guy who he knows how to keep things in order and keep it organized, and he works, and it's awesome. It's really inspiring for students like us. And I just wanted to know, how do you keep that passion running for Facebook?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, I think it kind of starts with doing something that you think is really important, right? You know, people, I think, build companies for a lot of different reasons, but you know, for me, I actually never really wanted to build a company. When I started Facebook, I didn't start it as a company. I just started it as a project, and I only decided to turn it into a company once we had so much work that we were doing that I realized that I needed a lot of help, and that the best way to structure this whole thing and make Facebook the best thing that I could was if I made it a company and used that to hire people. So that way, as we made money, I could get more talented people to join and get more energy going towards building and serving this community. But I actually think as I met more people who started companies, I learned that was actually not a very uncommon thing. A lot of the best companies and the founders who I admire didn't set out in the beginning to build a company, because at the end of the day, I think building a company can get kind of old. And there's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to deal with that's just not that fun. But if what you really care about is some change that you're trying to make in the world, then that can be pretty motivating for a long time. And then there's this concept in education these days, grit, where a lot of what makes, I think, a company or an organization or an individual effective is just the ability to power through a lot of stuff that sucks. And building a company, most things do not go your way, right? So, I mean, as much as it may look like, oh, like building Facebook, it just kind of like worked at each step along the way, it really isn't true. I mean, I've been very lucky, right? And I've gotten a lot of really good breaks, both in my life and in building this company. But like almost every day, there are crazy things that come up that just from all angles, right? I mean, we have a technical issue, and one data center doesn't have electricity, and we need to manage that, right? So kick in the backup generators, or there's like some government is trying to do something that's difficult, right? And or there's a competitor, or or like someone who's really important in the company wants to leave to go do something else, and we relied on them to go deliver something for our community, and or our business isn't going as well, and investors are going to be upset, and then there's all this pressure to focus on making money instead of doing what we really want to do, which is serving the community. So there are just all these things that come up, and I think the key is just kind of those two things. It's you really need to believe in what you're doing, and that it's an important and helpful thing in the world, and you need to have grit in order to kind of see these things through, and surround yourself with a team of people that you like working with who also have grit and will help you get through it, because no one can ever do this by themselves.
This is your host, Erik Qualman. We want to give a huge thanks to Mark Zuckerberg for his 7 super tips. Our hope is they help unlock and unleash your inner superpower. If you want to see more of these episodes, definitely subscribe to our channel below, and also comment on who you want us to reach out to, who do you want us to interview, who do you want us to curate next. And until next time, remember, this is your host, Erik Qualman, reminding all of us, it's not what we take from the world, it's what we leave behind. We're looking to curate, compile, and also sit down with the world's best. The world's best of what the... And as Mark has matured from a 19-year-old founder, and I already did that though, so now I'm just like, you can even see that in the mantra. Yeah, you already have that. Sorry guys, lots of typos today. Typos, bloopers. We've even seen that with his mantra. As I mentioned, his original mantra was move fast and break. Now it's move fast. No, didn't move to, sorry. I'm thrown off because I'm swearing. Do I need to say it again?